Welcome back to another episode of Create a New Tomorrow. I'm your host, Ari Gronich, and I am back with Kyle Davies from Wales. He was on the show before. I had to keep talking to him, longer conversation because he's so fascinating. He's a chartered psychologist, therapist, coach, trainer, author, and he's the creator of Energy Flow Coaching, which provides a framework and process for tapping into our innate ability to attain optimum health, well-being, creativity, and clarity of mind. Kyle, take it away a little bit. Tell us a little bit about how come I'm having you back on here? I mean, what is so fascinating about the work that you do that is so unusual that I would say, hey, I need you to come back.
It's great to be back. Thanks for having me again. And you've really put me on the spot there. It's funny, we're definitely living in a time where there are more healers and healing modalities than ever before in history. And there's obviously a lot of good people out there doing a lot of good work. And I lose track of everything that's out there. Go back kind of 20, 25 years, when I started practicing as a therapist, I kind of thought I knew everything that was out there. I had a handle on it. Whereas now it's just kind of mushroomed really, and there are so many things out there. But what's sort of unique about what I do? I'm sure it's probably the way I do it. I'm sure there's a lot of overlap in many ways. I think it's probably because I'm in a very simple level, I am looking at, as I touched on in the last show, that I'm looking at when people experience symptoms of fatigue or pain, even anxiety and depression, I'm looking at them from a perspective of it's a body and brain in a chronic state of stress. But I actually look at it from this idea that, right, well, the symptom is a messenger. And if you experience a severe symptom, it's actually your body's really shouting at you.
Sounds, here's the cool thing about this is if you're hungry, right? You say to somebody, eat, not take a pill. Typically, it wouldn't be, let's take a pill for that to suppress the hunger pangs. Although we do that in Western society and Western medicine a lot is, do something, take something in order to suppress. If you got a headache and it's because you haven't had enough water, you've been drinking too much soda, I wouldn't say take a migraine pill for that headache. I'd say drink some water and you'll take care of the cause of the symptom. And we do a lot, you mentioned a little bit, I mean, in our Western medicine thinking, we do a lot of symptom control versus root cause control. And by doing that, we can suppress symptoms, but cause make the root cause get worse and worse and worse, which is why we have this massive deterioration of health over the years. And I like your analogy of walking down the hall because, as I picture people piling on their symptoms as they walk down the hall, I also picture that picture of man going from straight up and starting to bend over and bend over and bend over. And it's the weight of all of these symptoms that are causing us to all of a sudden, you get 80 years old and you're staring at your feet. You can't look up anymore because your back is too arched. And we didn't do anything to take care of the cause. We only were treating symptoms and it just kept piling up. So
the final sort of interesting piece on that, well, for me, it's sort of interesting, on that, the hallway of health idea is that what I'm trying to do is have people turn around and walk back down the hallway. And the interesting bit I think about that is that it's very often the case that as people go back down the hallway back towards health, is that the pattern of symptoms often kind of reverses itself. So if I have someone that says, well, actually, the first sort of symptom I had was sleep disturbance, then it's very often that either sleep disturbance reappears or is the last symptom to go. Or if somebody says, well, I used to have anxiety before I had chronic fatigue, I used to have anxiety. Very often people say, oh, well, I've had a month of no chronic fatigue like symptoms of aches, pains, brain fog, but what I have had is a returning of my anxiety. And I'll say, well, that's a good thing because you're walking back down the hallway of health. So that's a sort of, I think that's kind of an interesting idea that, and particularly one of the things I emphasize to my clients is that the message behind the symptom may not be drastically different. So when you had mild headaches, whatever it was 20 years ago, maybe the message was exactly the same as it is now. You're kind of wiped out with chronic fatigue, 20 years later.
Here's my question to you. Somebody's walking down the road. They get a twinge. They don't notice the twinge, or they notice it as a subtle thing and they ignore it. Then they continue to walk, continue to walk, continue to walk. And we'll say that they're walking down a really long hallway because it's, it takes time. So year-long hallway, right? And then it gets to a place where it's unignorable. How can somebody acknowledge what's happening before it becomes unignorable?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, actually. And that was one of the things that, because I started my career working in business consulting, went into healthcare, and now I kind of do both, where I do kind of well-being stuff within organizations. But what I found is that the fundamental principles that underpin effective performance, mental clarity, and all that kind of stuff are sort of the same for health, certainly from an emotional perspective. So I think the key thing is being more body aware and recognizing that actually my body has my back. My body, this vehicle that I'm moving around this planet on, actually is trying to look after me. And rather than, if I can allow myself to step out, if I can recognize that, right, well, there is one way of dealing with things, and that's trying to just crack on, soldier on, patch up, put a band-aid over it. That's one way of dealing with things. But actually, for my longer term experience of life, my well-being, my performance, my health, I'm better off actually paying attention. If something's not quite right, just let's have a look at it. And let's just pause for a minute and figure that out. So again, I suppose it's having the knowledge that if I don't pay attention to it now, there's every chance, and if I don't know what it is, there's every chance that it could just get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, that is really the key here, is if you don't pay attention now. So to build more body awareness, in our last episode, one of the things that you had suggested was stopping to breathe more. I have another kind of a question that goes alongside that. Mental toughness versus emotional and physical awareness. Because some people believe that if they're going to be tough, then they have to, as you said, soldier through the pain. How does soldiering through the pain make you weaker, not tougher, and being more aware of what's going on cause you to be stronger as a human being, as a person, more optimal, etc.?
That's a great question. I think one of the fundamental underpinning pillars, if you will, of my work is that when we deviate from the essence of who we are, the flow of energy, the flow of consciousness that we are, I would say our true self, when we deviate from our true self, then problems ensue, and that's when we can become ill. And I recognize that sounds reasonably woolly, but okay. Part of that is when we don't allow ourselves to feel our feelings, feel our emotions, and all the rest of it. So at one level, I would say, okay, well, I can go to the gym And and deep down I feel I want to go to the gym, I want to work out, I want to be fit, I want to be strong, and that feels right. That's me being me doing that. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, but that's me being me. And I'm prepared to kind of push myself and exert myself, and some of that's going to hurt, and I might require what would be called mental toughness in order to push myself through over some hurdles. But in doing that, I would hope that I'm very aware of the difference between kind of good pain and bad pain. But also I'm in doing that, I'm still aligned with my true self. So I'm not, I'm doing whatever I'm doing because I'm being me in doing it. I think that we have a natural innate resilience within us, but I think we have to be true to ourselves. That's a deeper sense of self than, I think we need that. Otherwise, I think if our behavior is motivated by our egoic mind or our conditioning or pleasing other people, whatever it is, when our behavior is motivated from that level and we're trying to be tough for that level, then I think that's when we have problems.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, and it kind of goes along with the saying that a warrior's greatest strength is their vulnerability. And in today's day and age, we've gotten away from, in some cases, that, which I believe is part of the causes of massive PTSD amongst our soldiers, is because we've gotten to this place where our warriors, it's not okay for them to express their emotions and their feelings. They have to soldier on, and therefore they've become less able or capable of dealing with some of those emotions long term and some of the experiences long term, because they don't have their comrades, their other soldiers next to them being vulnerable with them. And I think in some cases it's moving back a little bit towards that, but in more of an older time, a soldier that was injured or was experiencing something had all of the other soldiers to be there directly, provide that community support, which allowed them to soldier on. The vulnerability was their greatest strength because it brought them closer as a unit, right? And so I believe that, with PTSD and some of these other things, that we could use more emotional intelligence and community support around the vulnerability aspect during the crises or directly after, so that we don't have to bring them home with us because we've been stuffing it for a year or two. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally. There's a couple of points I'd like to make with that. So I think that firstly, I think that we probably have a tendency to medicate people too quickly and believe that there is a problem too quickly. So if a person loses a family member, for example, they will go through a grieving process, and we understand that there is a grieving process which could give rise to anger, depression, anxiety, a whole host of emotions and possibly symptoms that could arise as a result of that process. Now, see, I view that because I think that we have an emotional system reset. So I think that we are designed to come back into balance in exactly the same way as our physical body does that. If you're running down the road and you fall over and you graze your knee, it really hurts. But you know that if you do absolutely nothing, your knee will heal itself. Yes, it goes through a process where a scab forms over the knee, and that's really itchy and you want to pick at it, but ultimately if you leave it be, your knee will heal. So understanding, part of the kind of idea of the scab forming and the healing and it being itchy and it being uncomfortable, and there's an emotional equivalent to that. So I think if you're getting over trauma, there is, you kind of go through a process and understanding that. So for me, that's kind of important. One of the things that I say in my corporate work is that when I talk about resilience, I say people that are resilient, it's not that they don't feel anything. It's not that they're like really happy all the time. They feel everything. So, which is exactly the point you just made, is being vulnerable and allowing that is really important.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And just in case anybody is wondering, Kyle works with people in the UK, USA, Brazil, Canada, Argentina. I mean, anywhere in the world that you are, we have shrunk the world with Zoom. He is more than happy to be of service, and has been for a number 25 years now. So I look forward to having you on sometime in the future. And again, thank you for listening, and thank you for being here and taking your time to understand these things and have these conversations with us. I look forward to your comments. Thank you so much. Create a new tomorrow. I'm your host, Ari Gronich. Activate your vision for a better world and have a healthy day. Thank you so much.